Okay, I welcome you all with love, and peace be with you. We'll start with a prayer, the merging of the heavens and earth, and Bereisheet, which is the Parsha we're doing today, talks about that in many levels. Hashem Yikud Kudushabrihu Ushihinte Bi'ilu Imulaya Chinyiki Bavavke Bi'iru Shem Shem Kozreo Kolam Amen. So Bereisheet is, without a doubt, the most complex Parsha in the Torah. And we start with the key to everything. It starts in the Hebrew, Bereisheet bara, which means from the something, from the nothing, comes the something. Second part of that is Bereisheet is also can be configured as the covenant of fire, which is the covenant of spirit, but also literally fire. The other thing it connotes is its shape, which is this way, is the first letter, is only one direction. Okay, forward. And we have beta, but what about the alpha? So it also tells us there's something prior to the beginning. Okay, so, and it also is a 2, but from the prior it's 1. And one of the Torah teachings is 1 becomes 2 becomes 1. And we play this out repeatedly. So from the 1 comes the many, but the evolutionary awareness is the 1 becomes the many becomes 1 when we wake up spiritually. And we also have a model here of liberation, is that 2 is what we see in the world of duality. Prior to the world of duality is the world of 1. And in Hebrew we say, Ayin Me'esh. The nothing becomes the something. So once we kind of see all those in the first 2 words, we start to get a little idea that the Torah is about liberation at its highest level, and about a whole bunch of other things in between. The other thing that shows up is that there's really 2 creation stories. It takes a while to sort it out because do they don't know how to write or what's really going on here? And it's like, no, wait. So in the beginning, when it says the heavens and earth, we are really talking about something very, very different. We are not talking about the earth. We are talking about the subtle physical planes, and the heavens is the subtle planes of creation. Earth doesn't appear, the physical earth that we're riding on, doesn't really appear until day 3. So that's interesting. So we have from the nothing coming to something, but we also have from the Big Bang a whole level of things being created. And before we have the creation of this universe, we have Tohu Bohu. What does that mean? Well, the Tohu is the primordial energetics of creation, and Bohu is the vacuum, the emptiness. And coming out of that also, Tohu and Bohu, is hydrogen and helium, which are the elements of creation, that are the elements come from. So there's a lot going on. So this, even sentence 1, we could spend hours talking about, but we're not going to do that. Okay, we're just going to give you the bigger picture, is that something came out of nothing. The fire of the immensity was so big, Bereisheet, the fire, covenant, and the fire of God, is that from the nothing, which is the divine, comes time and space, ultimately. Time, space, and beingness. And it's a little complicated because there's a little bridge. So Tohu Bohu are really connected with, but prior to time and space. The liberation path is to move from the something back to the nothing prior to existence, prior to time and space, where we literally dissolve into the nothing. And that's from where we came. Now, the ancient sages talked about multiple levels of creation, multiple, I'm going to say universes, but also multiple civilizations as we evolved. So we'll got a little ahead of ourselves, but I'm trying to set the stage here. So we have these, the first creation story is really about the creation of everything. The second creation story, which starts at Bereisheet 2:4, is really about the creation of the physical earth. Okay. And chaos, which is prior, is the Tohu Bohu. So it's like, it's pretty complex. And the main idea is something came from the nothing, that cycle repeats itself, and is the message of really liberation, to go from something to nothing, nothing to something. And we're actually cycling back and forth all the time in consciousness. That's the path of liberation. So it's said that we had an empty universe, and the template coming from the Big Bang was the energetics of the tree of life and the Torah. Of course, the Torah is an expression of the tree of life. There's a whole lot of steps in between, but basically that's the template that's injected into this universe. And creation then has the markings. And this is actually fairly provable all the way to the Milky Way. You can always see the tree of life configuration in a particular form. That's kind of both Kabbalistically and physics provable. So that gives us the idea. So now, that's day one. It's way more complicated than we understand, but I'm giving an overview. Now day two becomes the creation of the Elohim. What's that? These are the creator angels who are bringing through. So we use the word Elohim, plural, it's the creator angels. God is one, creator angels energetically coming. And then finally, day three is where we have the creation of more of the physical earth, and we have the beginning of plant life. Why do you need plant life before animals? Because they make oxygen. And so then you have the teeming energies in the water, and then you have the fish. Teeming meaning all little animal, fish, insects in that whole world. Then you have fish and the flying ones. And then day 6, we really enter into mammals, and the breath, the soul is born into them, and then finally human. Now, it continues to be complicated. Trying to sort it out is really what I'm trying to do here, okay? So, you have initially two beings being connected is Adam and Lilith. Male-female energy, but Lilith doesn't bond with Adam and actually ends up bonding with Samath, Satan. There's energy going on. So another creation, and we have, and this is all in the astral plane here. This is not physical, but in the astral plane, we have then he Adam and she Adam, which contain all the soul groups that are ever going to be here on the planet. Okay, key concept. It's not just Adam and Eve. It's it's all the soul groups merged into one. Now, before the fall, the Metatron soul group, which contains Hanak, broke off. So, like Hanak, they didn't fall. Okay, so that they see what's going on that particular group moves away, but then so finally Adam and Hava, Eve, do become physicalized, and they are initially a hermaphrodite. That's what the teaching is. It's one person hermaphrodite. And then, this is story level, but God sees, okay, Adam's lonely. Okay. Cosmic consciousness, how do you get lonely? But whatever, it makes the story. And the side of Adam splits off and becomes the she-Adam or Eve. Okay. They're really one. They're really one soul, but there is a split, and so they can face each other and be. Now, the teachings of the Torah, as interpreted through the Kabbalah, is indeed the he-Adam, she-Adam begin to divide and turn their backs to each other. And the evolutionary time that we're living in, we'll say pre-Messianic time, is the he-Adam and she-Adam become one again. This isn't really unlike Shiva and Shakti, or Rama and it has consort Radha, and it's there all over the creation. We understand the oneness and the repair of humanity in consciousness is integrating where the he-Adam, she-Adam know their oneness again. Now, dark side has a different idea. So we're there in the Garden of Eden. There are multiple levels, multiple discussions of where the Garden of Eden is. I'm going to skip that discussion and talk about the serpent. And the serpent is the dark side. The serpent says three things to Eve. One, if you eat of this tree of duality, Amadapurda, world of duality, you'll be immortal, you'll be extremely intelligent, and you'll be like a god. Note, this is what the transhumanists are talking about. This is the serpent speaking. Now, as I kind of look at the whole story, and what I mean that is that the story kind of implies that the serpent and Eve had sexual intercourse. I don't agree. She was slimed by the dark force energy, and it affected her. The reason I don't believe in Cain, the firstborn, carried some of the serpent energy. Now here's the key, because psychic energy can be transmitted through generations. It's predicted, prophesied, that eventually Cain will become the high priest, meaning Cain will be rectified. In fact, Cain does rectify himself, and and his punishment for killing his brother Abel is that on Shabbat nobody's going to hunt him and he'll be okay. But I'm saying something really important here, is that he lives on the planet. Now, at a deeper level of teaching, we have the Nephilim and and these other energies beneath, and they can't do well here Because they can't take the light. Their DNA is slightly different. They can't be in the light, or they can't metabolize the light. And the result is they go evil. So people ask, why are they evil? What's this evilness about? And it's that their DNA is slightly different. That is not the case with Cain. He has the different incarnations. He incarnates in a variety of times and places. And Abel reincarnates, and they get Moses is the incarnation of Abel, and there's 3 different incarnations of Cain that come up. But the point I'm making is he can take in the light and he can evolve spiritually. Very, very important. So there was I'm going to say a sliming by the dark side. So psychically she was impregnated, but they didn't actually have physical intercourse. Otherwise, his DNA would be different, and he couldn't evolve, and he would be to the dark side. So, an important distinction, because what I just said is, and what is said clearly in the Torah is, Cain repents. He meets Adam and he says, "Oh my God, this is what can I do?" And he repents for killing his brother Abel. Now, Cain represents technology, and at that time, we don't know exactly what the argument is, but the kind of oral tradition says Cain saying, "Well, we're better than God," because he's slimed psychically from the serpent, and Abel says, "No, we're with God. God is one, and our job is to merge back into God." So they have this argument, and Cain slays him. And Cain, 3 times, Moses being Abel, is 3 forms of Cain. Korath and the Egyptian slave master, and are both defeated by Abel as Moses. Okay, I guess he's able-bodied, he's able to defeat him. Okay, and then the high priest of Midian is also an incarnation of Cain. Okay, he's evolved, and he becomes part of the whole Torah path. He accepts the Torah. So what we have is the rectification. So there's a very important principle in here, right? Repentance and rectification. Otherwise, no one would make it. It's like, no one would make it. So what we have in the system is the ability to repent and be rectified and continue on the spiritual path. A very important message that is inherent in the Torah teachings. Now, that kind of sets the tone, and then 130 years later they have Seth, and again there's different teachings about, they're underneath and they come up to the surface called Tevel, and multiply. Okay? And now there are some other teachings in there, so I'm going to come back. But they multiply it, but they're given a diet. First, the message from God is, be fruitful, multiply. The soul is blown into them. Now, we do know, archaeologically speaking and anthropologically speaking, that there were human-type forms here 3.2 million years ago. The Earth itself is 4.5 billion years. The whole creation galaxy that we're in is 15 billion years. Okay, so why am I saying that? Because even those people were vegetarian. They basically had fruit, vegetable, nuts, lived in trees, okay, or lived with trees. But they were humans. 100,000 years ago, we had the Neanderthals, the Cro-Magnons, roughly speaking, and their brain size is bigger than the Adamic race. 100 cc's bigger, whatever that means. But obviously they didn't have the spirit. And the teaching in the Torah is, of the sages are really in the Torah, it's 1,000 generations before Torah would be given. But from the time of Adam, 26 generations. So what happened to the other 974? Those are the previous civilizations that existed here. And now we have a complete explanation for the length of the planet, the age of the planet, and so forth. Now there's one other thing about that, is you have the dinosaurs, millions of years ago. If we had the theory of evolution, that couldn't be. It couldn't happen. There isn't enough time and space to get dinosaurs millions of years ago. So the Torah sages clearly make a suggestion that it was an off-planet, manifestation, astral plane manifestation. And that's really important to understand, that this is from Torah sages. Now, I had the opportunity to visit with Watson and Crick, the people who developed the initial coding of the DNA in Cambridge, England, thanks to my wonderful American history teacher, Henry Steele Commager, who introduced me to them personally. We met him there. And their teaching is, too, high probability that DNA didn't come from evolution, too complicated, but was from off-planet. So this is not a new idea. It's not a New Age idea. It's really, this is probably what went on. But the more important thing is there were literally 974 generations before that. So there were prior civilizations. People say the 5 kingdoms, 7 kingdoms, prior civilizations. That's the point I'm making. And it's only at 5,779 years ago, here in 2018, that the Adamic race came into being. And that's what I'm talking about with the he Adam, she Adam, the flip. Okay? And now, as we're in what we call, because we're getting close to the 6,000 years, the reconfiguration of the oneness in male-female. Now, what we can note is the dark side does not want that to happen. So we have different things that are happening and are causing fear and friction between male and female. Totally the opposite of the spiritual evolution that needs to happen. That's kind of really important to understand. Now, be fruitful, multiply, and we're given then Bereisheet, Genesis 1:29, which is, what's your diet? And we're given a vegan life with diet. The seed of every green shall be yours, and the fruit of the seed-bearing tree. That's your food. Nuts, seeds, fruits, vegetables. So that's the original diet for our species for spiritual evolution. Kind of interesting. But that's what we're talking about. And that was a diet that existed all the way until the flood, until after the flood, where people got a permission. Noah, Bereisheet 9:3, got permission to eat animals. Now, permission is not direction. People want to misinterpret that as, oh yeah, you were told to eat meat. No, that's not the case. But in any case, so things kind of devolved, and we have Hanak at the 7th generation, as described, as living to be at age 65. He is taken up alive. It's unclear whether it was 1 month or 1 year. Doesn't matter. It's pretty unique. Comes down and gives the cosmic teachings. Now, Hanak really, I'm going to say, is the energetic father of the Essenes, because it was all about ascension. So Hanak then comes down and teaches till he's 365 years old, and he leads generations behind him. Remember, everybody's talking to everybody else. Think Adam lives to be 930 years. Well, think 7 generations. They knew each other. Think about about Noah. Probably, as I can tell, probably also studied with Adam. So it's like there's a real continuum here. Now, it's said in the more mystical tradition that the soul, Moses' soul, was the soul of Hanak. And the Messianic teaching is that the soul of Hanak will be that Messianic force in our time. So there's always a completely overlap. So then we have, and this is where Bereisheet ends, is we have Noah and his family being the best we have out there. He was the Zadok of his time. We may judge him, hey, he got drunk, he didn't quite get it all together. But he was, and one of the teachings of the Torah is there's nobody that's so perfect. But let's not get into, okay, he was drunk and this happened, but it doesn't matter. He was the only one of the whole civilization that could hold the energy, even partly. And so he's considered the Zadok of his time. And we get, it's real easy, and there's a teaching there, obviously, is that no one in this tradition is perfect. Moshe wasn't perfect. Obviously, Adam and Hava weren't perfect. So, but still, our job is to the reincarnation is a very big piece here, to keep evolving till we merge back into the one. And that's a message. So from the one becomes the two becomes the one. And so Bereisheet is a message, multiple levels, but it's a message of liberation, merging back into the one, prior to time, space, and I amness. Okay? It's a message, but it also is everything I've said actually, although it may seem way out there, has actually been stated by the different Torah sages, including Maimonides and Nachmanides and Yitzhak of Akko, who was a student of Maimonides. In other words, this is not new, and these are from the great sages, of a sense of this whole picture. And I've tried to pull this together, and please, it's very, very complicated. I've tried to condense it into, days of discussion into, 20 minutes or whatever, but it gives us a flavor for it. And the key message again is the Bereisheet bara. From the nothing comes the something, from the one, the nothing comes the something. Duality, which we call Alma Purda, which is the world of duality, and Amrita Shikra, the world of illusion. Our job is to see past the world of duality, past the world of illusion, and return to the one. That's the high kind of octave of teaching of Bereisheet, the liberation path that's clearly there. And then our job is, on the physical plane, to create the oneness in our everyday life. And be aware of the energies that are trying to create division and separation and hatefulness. We kind of get those messages because our job here is to move back into oneness. He, Adam, she, Adam becoming one, and that ultimate unity as we evolve spiritually. So may everyone be blessed with understanding Bereisheet bara and going from the one to the two to the oneness, which is the path of liberation and is the path of the Torah. Amen.